Welcome to today's episode of the Declutter Hub podcast, your channel for super easy, no-nonsense advice on how to declutter and organise your home. Please welcome your hosts, professional organisers Ingrid Jansen and Leslie Spellman.
Hello and welcome listeners to episode 108 of the Declutter Hub podcast. I'm Ingrid. In today's episode, I'm talking to Amy Payne, a certified professional organizer from Newburgh, Indiana in the USA, about overcoming information overwhelm. Oh, that's a bit of a mouthful, isn't it? Amy launched her company Lasting Order in 2011 with the goal of helping people live their one and only lives with purpose and intention. And her organizing firm helps people clear the clutter at home and at work. Amy is most passionate about utilizing technology to help business professionals maximize their time and resources at work. Welcome, Amy.
Thanks for having me.
You are so welcome. Now, to full disclosure, listeners, Amy and I have known each other. We believe it's 4 years. I mean, we both went to the NAPO conference in Atlanta in Georgia. But then we kind of really became, we can't remember if we know we met, but we can't really remember. But we truly met at the conference in Pittsburgh, where she actually was a speaker at the conference. And then 3 years ago, we met again in Montreal in Canada. And it's like, we've been friends, Amy. We've been friends, and we keep an eye on each other on Facebook, don't we?
Yes, it's great. I love social media for out of town and out of country friends. It's wonderful.
Definitely. Now, you in your bio, you said you love helping business professionals maximize their time and resources at work. But I'm sure you can give us loads of tips for us at home. I mean, everybody at work is now working from home anyway, so I'm going to really enjoy talking to you about what you can teach us about overcoming that information overwhelm. Because let's be realistic, I think we all have information overwhelm, don't we?
I think we do, for sure.
And we are specifically going to talk about using your smartphone to maximize your time instead of allowing it to distract you. I mean, so lots to go through. And listeners, when I was preparing this podcast, I was like, there is so much in this topic. I think I need to record 3 podcasts with Amy. So I'm already now thinking if we run out of time, we might have to come back at some point in the future and do another podcast, maybe with a different angle. So Amy, let's dive in because the time always goes so quickly on this podcast. So let's dive in. So what's your fascination with technology and how come you find that information overwhelm so interesting?
I am definitely a self-professed tech geek. I just love all things technology. I think for me personally, my obsession with technology has come from needing it, from needing to maximize my own technology and needing to figure out how can I best utilize a smartphone and my computer to get not only more work done, but to focus less on work and more on the things that are important to me. So I'm super passionate about helping others focus on things that are important to them. And if that means getting rid of more technology or utilizing it better, whatever they need from it, I love helping people. It comes naturally to me. I'm familiar with a lot of different kinds of technology. So little, tidbits and tips can really make a huge difference when you're talking about technology.
I am already in awe, listeners, because as you know, I am an absolute nightmare with technology and I still use a paper calendar and a paper diary. And I know Amy's probably going to look at me now going, what? I know, join the queue with my husband and with Leslie. They both are like, Ingrid, please, can you so any tips today, I will gratefully receive and take on board because I think I need it. I need it.
Good.
So then kick us off, Amy. So what kind of solid pieces of information can you share with us to tackle this overwhelm of information?
Well, one of the things that I see, people are overwhelmed because we have information coming in from so many different avenues,
Mhm.
right? Even with business owners, with regular, people at home, you've got information coming in through social media channels, through email, through your mailbox, physical paper. Kids are bringing papers home from school. You have all this information going on, all these different organizations that you're involved with, or committees, things like that. And how do you keep track of all of that different information?
Mhm.
So the key is to have a system in place of what are you going to do with the information when you get it. And you can utilize a combination of paper systems and technology for that. So, for example, if you have an item with a specific date and time, so say one of your kids brings home their soccer schedule, you need to have one calendar that you're storing that on, whether that's paper calendar for you, Ingrid, or whether that's a digital calendar for me. Having one place that you're going to keep that information, and then tasks. Where do you keep track of your action items? We use a little paper file system on people's desks or countertops to track action items when they bring papers home. You can also use task management systems like Todoist or Google Tasks, Evernote, things like that. And then thoughts, ideas, reference information. A lot of people chicken scratch that on the back of a receipt, a post-it note, a tablet of paper, but there's great digital technology that you can capture all of that information and then it becomes searchable. So when you get a little bit of information, say in an email, and you want to hold on to that little bit of information, a lot of people will keep that email in their inbox. Not a great place to keep that information, right? So we want to have a system, preferably digitally, that you can store that tidbit of information so that later you can search for it. When you're ready for it, you can find it and utilize it. So I love to use Evernote for that purpose, storing all the little thoughts, ideas, bits of information in one digital system. There are obviously other technology that are similar to Evernote, like OneNote, Notable, there's all kinds of different note-taking systems, but the key is to pick one and use it regularly so that you have a place to put that.
I think you're right. I think, and that's where what we see, and I think you see that as well with your clients, we try to do too many different systems and
Right.
then it all gets too messy, isn't it? It's like trying to store, if you have physical items, have them in so many different places in your house that you don't know anymore where they are because they're in too many different places and you can't look for them.
Right.
You're saying it's the same thing with information digitally. You need to use one system where you capture it all.
Right. And try not to be a digital hoarder in a sense, or a digital information addict. I have clients with, stacks and stacks and stacks of magazines or newspapers. Same thing with digital information. You don't want to just keep everything for the sake of keeping it. If it's something you can find again on the internet, you don't need to store the information yourself. You just need to search the internet for the information later. I can't tell you how many times I've seen people print their emails. It's a similar concept when you're just dropping a bunch of stuff into your note app, and then you end up just storing all of these articles and information that you could look up later if you needed to. So reduce the amount that you're keeping so that you can find the stuff that you're looking for.
And why do you like Evernote so much? Is there a specific reason why you've chosen that over another option?
Yeah, I personally love Evernote. It has a lot of different functions that I personally like scanning business cards, the searchability of it. When you pay for the premium level, you can actually search inside of documents that you've stored in there. So inside of PDFs, Word documents, Excel sheets, you can search inside of those inside of Evernote. Specifically, Evernote, I love because it goes across all of your devices. I use a lot of different kinds of devices because I work with people on their technology. So I have an iMac desktop computer, and then I use a PC laptop, an iPhone, iPad, different kinds of devices. And Evernote goes across all of those devices and syncs seamlessly. In addition, you can scan documents with your phone straight into Evernote. And so I love that feature where if you have a piece of paper, even if it's just handwritten notes, you can snap a picture of it and store it in Evernote and it becomes searchable as well.
Okay. So does that then connect? Because I think I tried to get I think I kind of delved into the Evernote world for a little while and tried to, but I'm not a tech geek at all.
Right.
And I was like, I just, because then it came for me a bit too much, but I know how passionate you are about it. So does it then connect with your calendar as well? Does it work that way?
Doesn't. So one of the mistakes people try to make with Evernote is they try to make it into way more than what it actually is, right? So I am not so much a believer in finding all-in-one technology where you can do everything with that piece of technology as much as I am of finding the best of each thing that you need. So, for example, Google Calendar is one of the best calendar systems out there. And you can sync your Google Calendar to your Apple system, and still it's Google that's powering it. So I prefer to use Google and sync it to my Apple devices instead. Similar with Evernote, it's a note-taking app. So it's not designed to be an Excel spreadsheet. You can do a table, but it doesn't do calculations, right?
Yeah.
You can track your tasks in there, but it's not a full-featured task management system. It's only designed for certain things. It is not a calendar system. It's not, there's a lot of things that Evernote is not. But what it does wonderfully is it captures all of these ideas, information, reference information that you need to hold on to in one digital place. I'm not completely anti-paper, as you may think. It's not about being 100% paper-free in your life. It's about less paper. If you have a stack of just random notes and thoughts, why not put it in a digital format? You can have it in your pocket. A lot of business professionals have stacks and stacks and stacks of business cards. I have 1,600 business cards in my pocket of all different people that I've met networking. And I can easily share that information with someone else as well. With Evernote, you can text a link, you can share a public link, you can send a copy of it to someone in the email, you can share a notebook with someone where you're collaborating back and forth with each other. So there's a lot of different ways you can share information and collaborate with someone together inside of Evernote too. As you can see, I'm a big fan. I could talk for hours about Evernote.
I think what we might need to do is put a link to Evernote in the show notes in case
Yeah.
people are like, how does it? I'm driving around in my car by listening to it. So I think what we need to do, I'll make a note on my paper copy and put Evernote link in show notes so I don't forget. I mean, I will re-listen to this podcast to make sure, but I just want to make a note for myself. Okay, so that's very interesting. So if you work with people to overcoming information overwhelm, is it always that you move them to Evernote, or is that not the intention? So if people hire you to deal with kind of all the information we have, where do you look at and where do you start?
Right. So one of the things that I love doing is helping a client research to figure out what's best for them. As much as I love Evernote, if I have a client who's already paying for something like Microsoft 365 and OneNote comes with it for free, why would you then pay for Evernote?
Yes.
OneNote and Evernote have become more equal level to me. It used to be that Evernote had way better features. At this point, I would consider them to be more equal. And so why would you pay for an additional one if you already have one? So for me, it's about finding the best technology for that client. How does your brain work? How do you function? What makes sense to you? What are you likely to use most? And that's really, for me, part of the fun of being the productivity consultant who focuses on technology, is exploring new options and then finding the best one for that person. So it's not about pushing one tech solution over another one. It's about figuring out what's going to work best.
Is it always just random pieces of paper, or is it also, do you help professionals, I think everybody listening is thinking to themselves, oh, well, I'm not a work professional or I'm just at home, but there are lots of random pieces of paper in my house. So
Yes.
where do you start? By snapping pictures or scanning them? Or do you need to link up your computer? Or do you, how does that, because I think a lot of people do write notes on different sticky notes and back of receipts. That sounded very familiar. I thought, I've seen this before. So if you work with somebody, either at work or at home, how do you start?
What I do when I sit down with a client and we're looking at what appears to be random bits of information, that's kind of the way it feels. It's just clutter, it's just random bits of information. But the truth is, each of those bits of information kind of has a different purpose, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's either an item that you need to do, it's an event that's coming up, or maybe supplemental information for that event. Maybe you got invited to a wedding and you need to hold on to the invitation so that you remember to purchase a gift.
Yeah.
Or you remember to buy an outfit for it, right? So there's all these little bits and pieces of information, but then some of it too is just reference information, like my frequent flyer number for this specific airline, or, I jotted down a to-do list on a little Post-it note. So there's different purpose for the information. So we start to sort through what is the purpose of this information, and then make sure we have a system for each kind of information, whether that's a calendar, a to-do list, or something like Evernote where we're storing that reference information. Mm-hmm. And then, do you need to hold on to that piece of paper or not? I think there definitely are times where that piece of paper comes in handy. For example, a wedding invitation. Maybe you want to put that on the refrigerator so that it's in front of you and you're remembering to do the things to get ready for it, where scanning it may not quite have the same effect. Some people are out of sight, out of mind. So if they scan everything in, then they're not going to remember what it is that they need to be doing. So even the information that we're scanning in, if it's an actionable item, we need to capture that in an action system, a to-do task list type of system. And then you could file the information away to hold on to it for later as well. So I really help people sort through what's the purpose of the information that you have, and then we capture it in some sort of system. I do love, obviously, scanning, going paperless, putting things into Evernote so that you can find them later as well. So even think about, like, you go Christmas shopping. Well, what did I buy that person last year? What am I going to get them this year? What ideas do I have for future birthday ideas? Or you're in a store shopping and you snap a picture of something. Oh, that's a good gift idea. Where do you put that information? That's what I love to use Evernote for. And so it's within Evernote, you can create different notebooks where you're organizing that information inside of it. I think some people get Evernote and they're overwhelmed. They're like, oh my gosh, it's just an empty box, right? Mm-hmm. You can buy a container, and if you just throw everything inside the container, it's still not organized. So there is a system of organizing it inside of your system that you've created. And that's where I really come in, where I'm helping you sort out what to do with each of these bits of information, and then how to organize that information inside of your system so that you can keep it organized and deal with it from there.
Okay, fabulous. So I'm thinking, right, okay, so you work with somebody and you find a invite for a party. You're like, okay, what would you like to happen with this invite? So you snap a picture so you can store it. Mm-hmm. You put immediately the date of the party in the normal calendar, whatever calendar that is.
Right.
And then you schedule tasks in your to-do list, buy a gift, and you add that to a date to it. You do, I need to maybe possibly look at my outfit, what I'm going to wear. And if I can't find anything, I still have 4 weeks. So you kind of mind map, and then you do the follow-up of, it's not just the party invite, it's all the other bits around it that need organizing. How am I going to travel there? Do I need to book a hotel? Who else is going? Can we share a cab? All of the tasks that come from that piece of paper that normally then lies on a desk or is stuck on a fridge, you start to log So you actually become far more organized with what needs to happen.
Right. You're planning ahead instead of 3 days before the wedding, you flip through a stack of papers and go, oh my goodness, now what? I haven't done any of that prep work ahead of time, or it's too late. I've already missed the RSVP because I lost this invitation in this mountain of paper that I haven't dealt with.
Yeah. And so what you're basically saying, instead of trying to hold on to all of that information in your head, and by having a visual reminder on a fridge, you actually need to make sure that you capture that information in a strategic way. So you make it far easier for yourself, and you start to, indeed, exactly what you're saying, you start to plan ahead instead of always being late to the party, basically.
Yes, exactly. I mean, that's one of the keys of being organized, especially with technology and information, is being proactive instead of reactive. When you live your life in that reactive state, it's stressful, it's chaotic, you're always late, you're always running around from one thing to another, and nothing is getting done well. When you're in a proactive state, you've captured the information you need, you're only dealing with the information that you need at the moment. And that's where having that, what I call reference information stored, you aren't having to look at it or deal with it until you need it. When you need it, you search for it, it's there, it's captured. But every time you look in your email inbox, you're not seeing the same reference information that's irrelevant to the moment. So it really helps you focus on what's important right now instead of just being overwhelmed with all the things that you're looking at the same time.
I'm like face palming here to myself because I'm like, I'm doing this too. I'm like, because I use my inbox because I've got 3 different inboxes, of course. I've got my private inbox, I've got my Declutter Up inbox, I've got my Organize Your House inbox. And I'm keeping stuff in my inbox that I know something. So I booked tickets for a musical. God willing, it's going to go ahead at some point. And I thought, I need to keep this email because it says there I need to pick up the tickets at the box office. But that doesn't until January.
Yes.
So now the question is, what am I going to do with that information? Am I going to leave it in my inbox? I've written it on my calendar, obviously. But I think now I'm going to have to decide where I'm going to capture that information so I don't lose it. Okay, I'm listening to you, Amy. I'm listening to you.
And what you just said is key. You said you have to decide what you're going to do with it. So Barbara Hemphill, a famous organizer, said, clutter is postponed decisions. So when you don't know what to do with something, you leave it in your inbox, or you leave that piece of paper laying on your desk or your counter. And then what happens, I joke, your clutter paper goes and makes more clutter babies. And all of a sudden the pile is 3 times higher than the last time you saw it. And now you have overwhelm. You don't know what to do. And so you just ignore it because it's just too much work to deal with it. So the key is to learn how to make decisions quickly about what is this piece of information and where does it belong, and put it in its system where it belongs, just like physical belongings in your home. If you have 10 items sitting on the kitchen counter, it's going to collect more items, where if you can make a decision about where that item needs to go and you put it away, you're less likely to leave more items on the counter. So it's the same thing, but in a digital format, making decisions quickly about where do things go, putting them away, and dealing with it right away instead of delaying those decisions and creating clutter.
You're so right. And it's we were never used to dealing with, I mean, when I was young, I mean, I'm not that old, but I'm still not young. We didn't have all this technology, you know, life was much simpler, and we are all suffering with far more information coming in. I think our lives are all incredibly much busier because we want to do so much stuff and be present and attend and be sporty. And we have to learn over time how to deal with all the information that's coming in.
And one of the big things is to cut it off at the source.
Okay.
Get rid of, unsubscribe from your email lists. Minimize the amount of time that you're spending on social media. Minimize the amount of mail that you're receiving at your house. Get rid of your junk mail right away. Your kids don't need to be in 25 different activities. The less activities they're in, the less information you're receiving, the less events that you have to go to, really simplifying your life in all ways. But even with technology, minimizing the amount of information you're receiving. Do you need to get, the news every morning in an email? Or is it something that when you want to read, you could go find it and read it? Seek it out instead. Make yourself do a little bit more effort to go get it, so that when it's not just coming to you every day, whether you want it or not, and then you're having to deal with it. The more that comes to you, the more you have to deal with decluttering, making decisions, and figuring out what to do about it.
I think you're so right. I mean, we all, get tricked into giving our email address all the time. And then before you know it, there's tons and tons and tons of emails coming in all the time. So I'm now on a mission again to unsubscribe to even more, because I'm thinking, if I want to buy a dress from my favorite shop, I don't need to get an email from them every day. If I want to buy a dress, I'm going to go to the website. I'm going to pick something out. I don't need them to tell me there's a sale on and that they're doing a discount and that they've got new stuff coming in, because it only then makes me want to shop more, which I don't want to do.
Exactly. And even with things like notifications, I could do an entire podcast just about notifications on your smartphone and on your computer. The notifications and the settings on your devices make a world of difference in how information is coming to you. Simply turning off notifications makes a big difference. It allows you to stay focused on the task that you're currently trying to do. How many of you, when you get an email or get a phone call, or a text message, you instantly pick up your phone? Or on your computer, it comes across the screen and then you instantly feel the need that you have to respond. You don't. I give you permission to not instantly respond every time you get a notification. It distracts you. And then when you're distracted, you're not able to focus on the things that you want to focus on. And that item now took priority over whatever it was that you were working on. And so turning off the notifications, even if it's temporary, for, while you're in a meeting or while you're trying to focus on a particular topic, or permanently, so that you're not distracted. I personally can be a little bit obsessed with making the little red circles on my phone go away, the little notifications. Drives me crazy to have notification symbols on my phone, and I feel like I have to eliminate them. But what social media does is the more you eliminate those notifications, the more they'll send you. And so it's this evil cycle where you just get roped in and it's distracting. And it really takes the focus off of the things that you really care about. And you just get sucked into this world of replying and looking at all the different things. Like you said, if you want to buy a dress, you're going to buy a dress. You don't need a notification to tell you, hey, you should buy a dress.
Yeah.
So turn those notifications off and make them work for you. Get notified about the things that you really care about. Turn off the notifications for the things that you don't.
Are you listening, listeners? Because I am, because I think this is very wise information. So you said something about minimizing the amount of time you spend on social media. So how do we reduce that besides turning off those notifications? What have you got a golden nugget for our listeners to do that?
I know at least on Facebook, and I believe, well, it depends on what kind of phone you have. I'm speaking primarily about an iPhone just because that's what I use. But I know through Facebook itself, you can set a time limit. You can tell Facebook that you don't want to spend any more than 30 minutes a day on Facebook. When you get to the end of the time, it pops up a little reminder, hey, you're reaching the end of your time. Are you sure you want to still be on Facebook? And then on your iPhone, you can actually set an amount of time that you want to be on social media in general. And then what happens is when your time is up, it turns it off and you have to say, yes, I want to allow it for 1 more minute, 15 more minutes, or the rest of the day. And so it's a wonderful, and then what it does is it makes your apps dark and it puts like a little time thing on there. So it shows you you've reached your time limit for the day on those particular apps, and you can customize which apps you want. And that really has helped me personally. I have friends all around the country, all around the world. We've lived a lot of different places. And so for me, social media is my way of connecting with people that I love, people that I know, and I'm a very social person. And so it's fun for me, but I can easily get sucked in to where that just consumes too much of my time. And so one other tip is I took the social media apps that are the most tempting to me and I put them on the last page of my phone. So when you scroll, you're swiping through your apps, I have to make the most effort to get to that particular app. And that discourages me from just seeing the notifications on my home screen for that particular app. So I put it far away, make it difficult to get to, turn off the notifications, and then set a time limit.
And have you saved lots of time?
Oh my goodness, yes. The other thing that iPhones do is they'll tell you, they'll give you a screen time report of how much time you spent with your screen turned on in the course of a week. And so from week to week, it'll tell you your screen time was up 20% or down 10%. And so I like to play a little game and I get all excited when my screen time is down for the week. So for me, I'm a competitive person too. I like to make it a competition with myself of, can I spend less time this week than I did last week? So,
yeah, I think we are all, I think it's so easy to scroll away hours on Facebook reading about what people are doing. But the thing is, if you're constantly on Facebook looking at other people's lives, you don't get anything done in your own house.
exactly.
And that's when the clutter builds up. And that's when, there's people say to me, oh, but I'm so busy and I can't do that. And I'm like, let's start with turning off your phone and let's just focus on one thing at a time. Let's focus on this now and see how much more you can get done. And I love social media like you.
Yeah.
And I have to be better at it. I'm not saying I'm a saint here. I have to be much better too. Because, it's just so easy to get sidetracked. And before you know it, there's hours on the sofa gone, just sitting there. And you're like, wow, I haven't done anything. And in the end, I think that your life is for living and not for just sitting on the sofa, scrolling past Facebook, seeing what other people are doing.
Right. Yeah. Another thing I do is I make sure Facebook becomes like my reward when I get something done that I wanted to get done. So I do that item first. And then if I accomplish that particular task, then I allow myself to be on Facebook. Or I set like a timer. I do the Pomodoro method. I don't know if you're familiar with that, where it's a 25-minute focused block of time on a specific task. At the end of the 25 minutes, you get a 5-minute break. And then you do another 25 minutes and then another 5-minute break. And so I say, okay, I'm only going to let myself check social media or even read my email during those 5-minute breaks. And that really helps me focus. And for me personally, when I can focus and get something done, accomplish something, it gets rid of the feeling of overwhelm. I have selected what is it that I want to actually get done today. And then when I see those things getting marked off of my list, that feeling of overwhelm starts to go away. And I just feel more in control and more proactive over my life and my schedule versus just reacting to everything that comes at me.
Well, listeners, on that bombshell, I thought that was absolutely amazing. And yes, I think we need to do another podcast. I would love to know more about notifications on smartphones and computers. So Amy, if you're up for it, I would love to do that with you and learn some more from you. Listeners, have you learned loads as well? And Amy, first of all, if our listeners would like to know more about you or maybe look at your blogs or look at your website, where can they find you?
My website is lastingorder.net. And you can see us on there. We're on Instagram, LinkedIn, Facebook, of course. We've mentioned Facebook a lot. All the different places. Twitter. We're on all the different social media platforms. Well, not all of them. Haven't quite gotten into TikTok and Snapchat yet.
Me neither. We need to up our game.
Exactly.
No, and that's the thing, is that you don't have to be on everything. And I think that's the That's the thing that's important. I will definitely put all of those links in the show notes. So don't worry if you are out and about, not having anything at hand to write this down. We will put the links in the show notes. Listeners, that's it for this episode. Thank you so much, Amy, for your time and for kind of talking to us about information overwhelm. Are you going to try Evernote, listeners? Are you going to try and capture that information? Have you thought about reducing the information that's coming in and dealing better with the information that you need to keep and that you can then look for again? Are you going to think about reducing your screen time? I mean, there was a lot in this podcast to think about, and we kind of only dipped our toe in all of those things a little bit, but super interesting information. Amy, thank you so much.
Thank you for having me. It was very fun.
Thank you so much. So, listeners, we hope you've enjoyed listening and are inspired to take action, because that is what we are all about. And we appreciate you taking the time to listen today. If you've enjoyed this podcast, please share it with others. Maybe your friends or family would love our show too. And on our show notes page on our website, you can find all the sharing buttons. If you would like to have more handy tips and advice from Leslie and I, you can find us in lots of places. And we've got a fantastic, supportive Facebook group called the Declutter Hub Community. And you can find us on Instagram and on a Facebook page too as @Declutter Hub. And we'd love to see you there. If you'd like to become a member of our VIP membership, do check out members.declutterhub.com. And we've got fantastic information on how to reduce that overwhelm of all that clutter. If you don't want to miss the next episode, please subscribe to the Declutter Hub podcast and it will pop into your notifications each Friday. So thanks so much for listening and see you next time.
Thanks for listening to this week's episode of the Declutter Hub podcast. Check out declutterhub.com for more inspiration and don't forget to tune in next week.